Hello, I'm Peter. I'm so glad you could join me for tonight's journey. Before we begin, let me ask you something. When did you last wake up without an alarm? Not because you had to set your schedule differently, but because your body simply decided it was time. When did you last eat because you were genuinely hungry, not because the clock told you it was mealtime? When did you last fall asleep watching stars instead of screens? These questions might sound strange, perhaps even inconvenient. But 40,000 years ago, they wouldn't have been questions at all. They would have been life itself. Tonight, we're stepping back through time to a world that exists now only in shadows and stone. A world before calendars measured our days, before walls contained our nights, before we learned to separate ourselves from the rhythm that birthed us. We're going to spend one full day and night with people who were, in every biological sense, exactly like you and me. Same brain capacity, same emotional range, same capacity for love, fear, wonder, and hope. The only difference is the world they inhabited and the way they moved through it. You've probably seen them in movies, grunting figures draped in ragged furs, clubbing each other over scraps of meat, huddling in dark caves while saber-toothed tigers prowled outside. Hollywood has not been kind to our ancestors. It has painted them as brutes, as creatures barely above animals, locked in a desperate struggle against starvation and cold and an early death. But here's what the evidence actually shows. Those people, your direct ancestors, worked fewer hours per week than you probably do. They had more leisure time than most modern adults will see in a month. They created art so profound it still moves us to tears 40 millennia later. They made music that echoed through cathedral caves. They developed social bonds so strong that they cared for the disabled, the elderly, the wounded, keeping them alive for years past any economic usefulness. They were not surviving. They were living. And perhaps most surprising of all, they may have understood something about being human that we've somehow forgotten in all our progress. Something about time. Something about connection. Something about what our bodies and minds actually need to feel whole. So, settle in. Pull your blanket a little closer. Let the sounds of your modern world fade into background static, because we're about to discover that the distance between us and them is not as vast as we've been told. In fact, in the quiet spaces of your own body, in the rhythms you can't quite ignore no matter how many notifications interrupt them, you might find that you've never really left that world at all. You've just learned to pretend you have. The sun hasn't risen yet. The year is approximately 38,000 BCE, and you are about to wake up in a world that will challenge everything you think you know about what it means to be human. Shall we begin? Your eyes open, not because anything jolted you awake, but because something subtle shifted in the temperature around you. The air has grown colder, not uncomfortably so, but noticeably. It's that particular quality of cold that comes just before dawn, when the night has spent all its stored warmth and the sun hasn't yet returned to replenish it. Your body registers this change even before your conscious mind does. It's called vasoconstriction, this tightening of blood vessels near your skin, this drawing of warmth inward to protect your core. And it's this process, not an alarm clock, not an obligation that brings you back to consciousness. Above you, through the opening of the rock shelter, the sky is shifting from black to a deep, bruised purple. A few stars still insist on their presence, though their light is fading. The Milky Way, that river of ancient light, stretches overhead with a brilliance you've never seen in your modern life. There's no light pollution here, no city glow. The galaxy is laid bare, and it's so bright you could almost read by it. You lie still for a moment, listening. The first birds are beginning their morning conversations. Not the full chorus yet, just the early risers testing their voices in the pre-dawn stillness. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the low grunt of a large animal. Maybe a bison, maybe something else. The sound doesn't frighten you because you've heard it all your life. It's part of the texture of morning, like the sound of wind or water. Next to you, others are sleeping. Your band, your family in the broadest sense of the word. About 25 people share this rock shelter, arranged in small clusters of 2 or 3, each group centered around its own small hearth. The fire nearest you has burned down to coals, but it's still alive. Someone, probably one of the elders who sleep lightly, must have fed it during the night. You don't leap up. There's no rush, no schedule pressing down on you, no meeting at 9, no deadline at noon. Time here is not a grid you must navigate, but a river you float within. You might spend the next hour simply lying here, watching the light change, letting your mind wander through the dreams you just left. This is not laziness. This is how human beings were designed to wake up. Gradually, naturally, you begin to move. You sit up, and the animal hide that covered you slides off your shoulders. And in that movement, still half asleep, still lost somewhere between dream and waking, you almost trip over your own legs. Your foot catches on the edge of the hide, and for one ridiculous moment, you're tangled in fur and limbs, doing an awkward dance that would look absolutely absurd if anyone were filming it for posterity. But no one is, and no one cares. This is just how bodies work in the morning. Clumsy, uncoordinated, not quite connected to the brain yet. Even 40,000 years ago, even in a life of constant physical activity, mornings are mornings, and mornings are messy. You manage to extract yourself from the fur without falling completely over, which feels like a small victory. And as you reach for your cloak, you catch the eye of the teenage boy across the fire. He's watching you with barely suppressed amusement. You've just provided the morning's entertainment. You could feel embarrassed. In your modern life, you probably would. But here, there's no room for that kind of self-consciousness. Everyone has watched everyone else wake up in equally ungraceful ways. Everyone has seen everyone else at their most human, most imperfect, most real. So instead of embarrassment, you feel something else, something like belonging, like being part of a family where you don't have to perform or pretend or maintain any kind of image. You can be clumsy and messy and half awake, and that's fine. That's just being human. The cold touches your skin fully now, and you reach for the fur cloak bundled nearby. It's made from the pelts of several animals, rabbits and foxes, sewn together with sinew thread so fine it's almost invisible. Someone spent weeks making this garment, and it shows. The stitching is perfect. The fit is exact. This is not primitive technology. This is high craft. Around you, others are stirring in the same unhurried way. An older woman is already up, crouched by her fire, feeding it small sticks. She doesn't speak, but she catches your eye and offers a small nod. Acknowledgement, connection. You exist, I exist, we share this morning. That's enough. A child, maybe 4 years old, sits up and immediately toddles over to an aunt who isn't his mother, but who receives him as if he were. The child's hair is an absolute disaster, sticking up in every direction like a bird's nest after a windstorm. He rubs his eyes with tiny fists, takes 3 wobbly steps toward his aunt, and then trips spectacularly over his own feet, tumbling forward in a completely graceless somersault that would make any modern parent gasp. But no one gasps here. The aunt simply opens her arms wider, and the child crashes into her lap with a giggle that's pure joy. She laughs too, a warm sound that ripples through the morning air and ruffles his impossible hair with one hand while pulling him close with the other. The boy's mother, tending the fire a few feet away, glances over and grins. No anxiety. No rushing to check if he's hurt. Just the quiet confidence that children fall, children get up, children are fine. This is what childhood looks like when it's not wrapped in bubble wrap and constant supervision. And there, at the edge of the firelight, you notice something else. A dog. Or rather, something that's becoming a dog, though it still looks half wolf. Its coat is shaggy and dark, its ears pointed, its eyes amber and intelligent. It's been sleeping near the entrance of the shelter all night, doing what dogs have done for humans since the very beginning, standing guard. The child spots the animal and immediately forgets about his tumble. He squirms out of his aunt's arms and toddles toward it with his hands outstretched, making a sound that might be the proto-language version of puppy. The animal's tail begins to wag, a slow, uncertain movement, as if it's still learning this language of affection. The aunt watches, but doesn't intervene. She knows this animal, trusts it. And sure enough, when the child reaches it, the dog wolf lowers its head and allows itself to be patted with all the gentle grace of a 4-year-old, which is to say, not much grace at all. The child's hand lands somewhere between the animal's ear and eye, but the creature doesn't flinch. It just sits there, patient, accepting, its tail wagging a little faster now. This is the beginning of something that will change both species forever. The alliance between human and wolf, forged not through dominance, but through mutual benefit. We'll keep you warm and fed. You'll warn us when danger approaches. We'll face the world together. But right now, in this moment, it's just a sleepy child and a tolerant animal, sharing the quiet warmth of morning. Simple, perfect. A scene that's been repeated 10,000 times and will be repeated 10,000 more. This is cooperative breeding in action. Children here belong to everyone. They're raised by the village, protected by the village, taught by the village. A mother can gather food or work on a task, knowing that at any moment, 5 other people are watching her child with the same care she would. You stand and walk to the edge of the shelter. The view opens up before you. Hills roll away into a valley where a river cuts through grassland. The landscape is rich with life. You can see a herd of horses grazing in the distance, their shapes still dark against the lightening sky. Closer, a pair of cranes picks through the marsh at the river's edge. The air smells clean, earth and grass and a hint of smoke from the fire. No exhaust fumes, no industrial chemicals, just the smell of the world waking up. You realize something that people in your modern life rarely experience. You have nowhere you have to be, nothing you must do in the next hour or even the next several hours. The day will unfold according to need and opportunity, not according to a schedule someone else created. And this realization, this absence of pressure, creates a feeling in your chest that you might call peace, though it's deeper than that. It's the feeling of living in alignment with what you actually are, instead of what you've been told you should be. One of the older men approaches. His name, if we tried to pronounce it, would be meaningless to modern ears. So let's just think of him as the elder. He's maybe 50, which makes him ancient by the standards of popular imagination, though not particularly old by the reality of hunter-gatherer life. He's seen grandchildren born. He's survived injuries that would have killed him without the care of his community. And he knows things. He speaks. The language is unlike anything modern humans speak. A complex system of sounds and tones that can convey incredible specificity about the world. He's telling you what he noticed during his watch in the night. The wind shifted from the north. That means the weather might change. He heard wolves, but they were far off, probably hunting the horse herd we saw. The river sounds higher than yesterday. Good for fishing later. This is information transfer, but it's also something more. It's the way knowledge moves in a world without writing. Everything important must be remembered, must be spoken, must be passed from mind to mind. The elder is a library. His brain contains weather patterns spanning decades, migration routes of animals, the locations of water sources that only appear in certain seasons, the uses of hundreds of plant species, the stories of his people going back generations. And he shares this freely because knowledge here is not power to be hoarded, but oxygen to be breathed. Everyone's survival depends on everyone knowing what they need to know. You notice something else about the elder as he speaks. His hands, they're moving as he talks, shaping invisible forms in the air. This is not random gesture. This is part of the language. Among people who must remember everything, who have no books or recordings or external storage of any kind, memory becomes an art form, and the body becomes the canvas. He's describing the location of a water source that only appears after heavy rain, and his hands are drawing a map in 3 dimensions. This ridge, this valley, this distinctive rock formation. His fingers trace the path you would walk to get there, and watching him, you can see it. Your brain is creating a mental map based entirely on the movement of his hands through empty air. This is how knowledge travels here, not through words alone, but through gesture, through song, through story, through the embodied transmission of information from one nervous system to another. The elder is not just telling you where the water is. He's installing a spatial memory in your brain that you could follow even in the dark. And he does this with everything. The behavior of animals, the properties of plants, the stories of the ancestors. Each piece of essential knowledge is encoded not just in language, but in movement, in rhythm, in patterns that your brain can grasp and hold without conscious effort. Modern humans call this primitive. But watch a surgeon learn to make an incision. Watch a pianist learn a complex piece. Watch any master of any craft, and you'll see the same thing. Knowledge that lives in the hands, in the body, in the automatic responses that bypass conscious thought entirely. The elder possesses dozens of these embodied knowledge systems, and he's passing them on right now through the simple act of talking with his hands. This is education. This is the University of the Paleolithic, and the graduation rate is 100%, because if you don't learn, you don't survive. You look around at the others, the young mother feeding her child, the teenage boy sharpening a stick with a stone blade, the old woman sorting through a pile of plant fibers, her fingers moving with the unconscious speed of someone who's done this 10,000 times. Each of them is a library. Each of them carries in their body and brain information that took generations to accumulate. And here's what strikes you. They're not stressed about it. They're not frantically taking notes or worried about forgetting. The information lives in them the way breathing lives in them. Natural, automatic, part of who they are. In your modern world, you outsource memory to devices. You don't remember phone numbers because your phone remembers them. You don't remember directions because GPS remembers them. You don't remember facts because Google remembers them. And in doing so, you've freed up space in your brain for other things, yes, but you've also lost something profound. You've lost the deep, embodied knowledge of the world around you. You've lost the ability to navigate by stars, or predict weather by the behavior of birds, or identify edible plants by their smell. You've traded breadth for depth, convenience for competence, and maybe that trade was necessary. Maybe specialization is the only way to build the complex technological civilization you come from. But sitting here, watching the elders' hands paint pictures in the air, watching information flow from body to body without ever being written down, you feel the loss of it, the loss of knowing your world so intimately that you could survive in it with nothing but your wits and your hands. The elder finishes his explanation and turns to the fire. He selects a few pieces of wood from a neat stack nearby, places them carefully in the coals, not haphazardly, with precision, creating channels for airflow, ensuring the fire will burn clean and hot. Even this simple task is a skill. Even this requires knowledge that took years to master. And you realize there is no such thing as an unskilled person here. Everyone is an expert in something. Everyone has knowledge that the group needs. The mother knows about child rearing and plant medicine. The teenager knows which trees make the best spear shafts. The old woman knows stories that encode survival information going back generations. In your modern world, we have a concept called job security. The fear that you might be replaced by someone who can do what you do better or cheaper. But here, There is no replacement. Each person's knowledge is unique, accumulated through a lifetime of experience in this specific landscape with these specific people. You can't be replaced because you are irreplaceable. And that creates a kind of security that goes deeper than economics. It's the security of being needed, of knowing that your existence matters not because of what you produce, but because of what you know and who you are. Someone has placed a few strips of dried meat near the fire, letting them warm. You take a piece. It's tough, requires serious chewing, but the flavor is intense. This isn't meat from a grocery store. This is bison or deer, killed several days ago, preserved by the smoke of this very fire. As you chew, you're participating in a process that goes back hundreds of thousands of years. Fire doesn't just cook food. It breaks down fibers, releases nutrients, makes calories accessible that would otherwise pass through your system unused. Your ancestors didn't have big brains despite their diet. They had big brains because of it, because they learned to transform raw ingredients into fuel for thought. Others are eating too. Small portions, not a formal meal, just fuel for the morning. No one is hoarding. No one is taking more than they need. This is a fundamental rule here. Generosity is not virtue. It's insurance. Today you share your meat with someone who has none. Tomorrow, when your hunt fails and theirs succeeds, they'll share with you. This system has kept humans alive through ice ages and droughts and disasters that would have destroyed any group that tried to survive alone. As the sun finally breaks over the horizon, its light floods the valley with gold. Everyone pauses to watch, not because they worship the sun, though they may, but because it's beautiful, because beauty matters, because a life spent entirely on survival without moments of wonder is not a life worth living, and your ancestors understood this in their bones. The first hour of the day has passed. You've woken slowly, eaten lightly, shared space with your people, and watched the world return to light. You haven't checked your email. You haven't worried about traffic. You haven't felt the low-grade anxiety of knowing you're already behind on everything you need to do. And you feel, perhaps for the first time in your modern life, truly rested. But the day is just beginning. Mid-morning now, the sun has climbed higher, burning off the last of the mist that clung to the river. The temperature is rising, though it's still cool enough that you keep your fur cloak wrapped around your shoulders. A small group is forming near the edge of camp, mostly women, though not exclusively. A younger man who has a gift for identifying plants is joining them. 2 adolescent girls, eager to learn, and you. This is the gathering party. And before you dismiss this as somehow less important than hunting, less dramatic, less worthy of attention, understand this clearly. Gathering provides 60 to 80% of the calories this group consumes. The hunters may get the glory when they return with a carcass, but the gatherers provide the foundation of survival. Day after day, season after season. This is the work that keeps everyone alive. The woman leading this expedition is someone we'll call the gatherer, though that title doesn't capture the depth of her expertise. She's about 35, lean and strong, with hands that have spent decades working with plants and tools. Her knowledge is staggering. She can identify between 200 and 300 different plant species on site. She knows which are edible, which are medicinal, which are poisonous, and which can be transformed from one category to another through proper preparation. She is, in effect, a walking encyclopedia of ethnobotany. And she learned all of this not from books, but from observation, from experimentation, from stories told by firelight, from making mistakes and learning from them. Before the group sets out, she speaks. She's describing where they'll go today and what they'll look for. There's a grove about an hour's walk from here where certain tubers should be ready. The outer skin is bitter, toxic even. But if you roast them twice and peel away the char, what's left is starchy and filling. There's also a patch of berry bushes that might be producing. And if they're lucky, they might find some mushrooms near the rotting log where mushrooms appeared last year after rain. This is not random wandering. This is precision. She has a mental map of the landscape that includes not just geography, but seasonality, ecology, and multi-year patterns. She knows what blooms when, what ripens where, what can be harvested without depleting next year's growth. She practices sustainability without ever using the word. The group sets out, and you walk with them. The pace is relaxed, no rushing, but every step is observant, eyes scanning constantly. You notice one of the girls suddenly veer off the path, crouch down, examine something. She's found a plant with leaves arranged in a particular pattern. She looks back at the gatherer, who nods. Yes, that's the one. The girl carefully digs around the base with a pointed stick, loosening the soil until she can pull up a root roughly the size of a carrot. She brushes off the dirt, tucks it into the woven basket she carries, and moves on. This is education, not in a classroom, but in the field. Not through lectures, but through demonstration, through trial, through the quiet correction of errors before they become dangerous. The girl is learning which plants can kill her and which plants can feed her. And she's learning the difference by touching them, smelling them, tasting tiny amounts under supervision. As you walk, the gatherer points out other details. Those scratches on that tree bark? A bear sharpened its claws there. See how high up they go? That's a big bear. Best to avoid this area in the evening. And those droppings? Rabbit. Fresh. Which means predators are probably nearby, because where there are rabbits, there are things that eat rabbits. You begin to understand that she doesn't just see the forest, she reads it, like you might read a newspaper, scanning for relevant information, making connections between disparate facts, building a coherent narrative about what's happening in this ecosystem right now. You reach the tuber grove and the real work begins. Digging is labor. No mechanical tools to make it easy. Just a sharpened stick, hardened in fire and strong arms. You drive the stick into the earth, lever it back, loosen the soil, pull up the root. Each tuber requires maybe 5 minutes of work. You're not harvesting all of them, just enough for today and maybe tomorrow. Leave too many, and next year there will be fewer plants. This is not conservation in the modern moralistic sense. This is practicality. You don't kill the golden goose. The work settles into a rhythm. Dig, extract, collect. Dig, extract, collect. And as the rhythm establishes itself, the talking begins. This is when the real social bonding happens. The older women tell stories. Some are informational. That winter when the river froze so hard you could walk across it, remember? We had to move camp 3 times to find food. Some are funny. Remember when so-and-so tried to impress everyone by eating that root without asking first, and then spent 2 days with his stomach in rebellion? Some are more serious. Quiet conversations about relationships, about who's frustrated with whom, about the subtle politics of a group where everyone must get along because there's nowhere else to go. This is gossip, yes, but gossip serves a function here that goes far beyond entertainment. It's how social norms are enforced in a community without police, without courts, without formal authority. If someone is selfish, hoards food, refuses to share knowledge, refuses to help with communal tasks, they're talked about. And that talk carries weight, because your reputation in a group of 25 people is everything. It determines whether people will help you when you're injured, whether they'll share food when you're hungry, whether they'll teach your children the skills they need to survive. Generosity is not just moral, it's strategic, and the constant low-level surveillance of gossip ensures that everyone knows everyone's track record. But it's not all serious. There's laughter too. Someone makes a joke about the young man who's been trying to catch the eye of one of the unmarried women. He's been bringing her gifts, a particularly beautiful shell, a piece of polished amber. Everyone knows what's happening, and everyone finds it charming and slightly ridiculous in the way that courtship always is. After several hours, the baskets are full. Tubers, roots, a handful of greens, some berries that turned out to be ripe after all. This haul represents thousands of calories. It's not glamorous. No one will sing songs about the heroic berry picking, but without this work, the band would starve. On the way back, you pass through a meadow and something catches the gatherer's eye. She stops, kneels, examines a plant with small white flowers. She picks one, crushes it between her fingers, smells it. Then she looks up at the group and speaks. This plant, she explains, can stop bleeding. If someone is cut, you crush the leaves and press them into the wound. The bleeding slows. She doesn't know why. She doesn't have the language for coagulation or the chemical compounds in the plant that promote it. But she knows it works because she's seen it work. Because her mother showed her, and her mother's mother showed her mother. And the knowledge has come down through a chain of observations spanning thousands of years. This is empirical science without the scientific method. This is medicine without pharmacology. And it works. The gatherer tucks a few stems of the healing plant into her basket and stands. But before the group continues walking, she does something unexpected. She looks back at the meadow where the plant grows, and she speaks, not to the group, to the plants themselves. Her words are soft, almost singing. You don't understand the language, but you understand the intention. She's thanking the plants, apologizing for taking from them, promising to return and care for this place so it will continue to provide for future generations. This is not superstition. Or rather, it's not just superstition. It's a technology of care. By treating the landscape as alive, as deserving of respect and reciprocity, she's encoding an ecological ethic that ensures sustainability. She won't overharvest because that would be betraying a relationship. She won't damage the ecosystem because that would be hurting someone she's in conversation with. Modern conservation science calls this traditional ecological knowledge, and it's finally beginning to recognize that indigenous peoples who managed landscapes this way for thousands of years often did a better job than modern resource managers with degrees and satellite data. Because they weren't managing resources, they were maintaining relationships. The group walks on, and the gatherer continues to teach. See that bird? The one with the red spot on its wing? It's called. And here, she makes a sound that no modern language has a letter for. And it only appears when certain berries are ripe. The bird and the berry are partners. One eats, one spreads seeds, both benefit. And we benefit by reading their relationship and knowing when to harvest. This is ecology, not as a subject you study in school, but as a lived reality you participate in. The gatherer sees the world as a web of relationships, and she knows her place in that web. She's not an outside observer. She's a thread in the fabric. One of the adolescent girls asks a question. She's pointing at a tree with unusual bark, peeling in long strips. The gatherer approaches, examines it, and her expression changes. She becomes very still, very focused. She calls the group over. This tree, she explains, is dying, and not from natural causes. See these marks? Something has been stripping the bark, something big, and recently. She points to sap that's still sticky, still fresh. The group exchanges glances. Everyone understands what this means. A large animal, probably a bear, is active in this area. And while bears are not usually aggressive, they are unpredictable, especially if surprised or if they have cubs. The gatherer makes a decision. We'll take a different path back to camp, longer but safer. And she marks the location in her mind, adds it to the mental map she carries. This area, for now, belongs to the bear. We'll come back when the bear has moved on. This is risk assessment. This is what anthropologists call landscape literacy. She reads danger in tree bark the way you might read a warning sign, and she adjusts her behavior accordingly, without fear, without drama, just with the practical wisdom of someone who knows that the wilderness is not a park created for human recreation. It's a community of beings with their own needs and territories, and humans are just one species among many. As you walk the longer path, you notice how the group's energy has shifted. Everyone is more alert, eyes scanning, ears tuned to sounds. This is not paranoia. This is appropriate vigilance. In a world where predators are real and help is not a phone call away, awareness is survival. But here's what's remarkable. Despite the tension, despite the very real danger they've just avoided, no one seems anxious in the modern sense. No one is catastrophizing or imagining worst-case scenarios, or lying awake at night replaying the moment they saw the damaged tree. They assessed the risk, adjusted their route, and moved on. This is the difference between fear and anxiety. Fear is a response to present danger. It's useful. It keeps you alive. Anxiety is fear about future hypotheticals, about things that might happen but probably won't. And anxiety, modern neuroscience is finally understanding, is largely a disease of civilization. When you live in immediate relationship with risk, when danger is concrete and present rather than abstract and distant, your nervous system stays calibrated. You respond to real threats and relax when they pass. But when you live in a world where the threats are invisible and constant, where the news feeds you catastrophe from around the globe, where your job and your health insurance and your retirement all hang by threads you can't see or control, your nervous system never gets to rest. It's always scanning for the bear that isn't there. The gatherer doesn't have anxiety. She has challenges, and there's a profound difference. The group reaches a stream and everyone stops to drink. The water is cold, clear, straight from the earth. No filter, no treatment, just water as it's been for millions of years. And it tastes different from the water you know. Alive, mineral, real. As you drink, you watch the others, the way they cup their hands, the way they lean forward, careful not to disturb the silt, the way they look upstream and downstream, checking for signs of animals who might have used this water source recently. Everything is observation. Everything is data. The young man who joined the gathering party crouches by the stream and examines something. He calls the gatherer over. There, in the mud at the water's edge, is a print, large, clawed, recent enough that water is still seeping into the depression. The gatherer studies it. Her face is calm, but you can see the calculations happening behind her eyes. She looks at the sun, estimating time, looks upstream, reading the landscape, makes a decision. We'll fill our water bags here and move on. Whatever made this track is probably far away by now, but we won't linger. And that's exactly what they do. Efficient, calm, no wasted motion or energy. Within minutes, everyone has drunk their fill, refilled their leather water containers, and the group is moving again. This is what competence looks like. Not the absence of danger, but the ability to recognize it, assess it, and respond appropriately. The gatherer doesn't pretend the wilderness is safe, but she also doesn't treat it as an enemy. It's simply home, and she knows how to be at home here. The gatherer tucks a few stems of the healing plant into her basket and stands. But before the group continues walking, she does something unexpected. She looks back at the meadow where the plant grows, and she speaks, not to the group, to the plants themselves. Her words are soft, almost singing. You don't understand the language, but you understand the intention. She's thanking the plants, apologizing for taking from them, promising to return and care for this place so it will continue to provide for future generations. This is not superstition, or rather, it's not just superstition. It's a technology of care. By treating the landscape as alive, as deserving of respect and reciprocity, she's encoding an ecological ethic that ensures sustainability. She won't overharvest because that would be betraying a relationship. She won't damage the ecosystem because that would be hurting someone she's in conversation with. Modern conservation science calls this traditional ecological knowledge, and it's finally beginning to recognize that indigenous peoples who managed landscapes this way for thousands of years often did a better job than modern resource managers with degrees and satellite data, because they weren't managing resources, they were maintaining relationships. The group walks on, and the gatherer continues to teach. See that bird? The one with the red spot on its wing? It's called... And here, she makes a sound that no modern language has a letter for. And it only appears when certain berries are ripe. The bird and the berry are partners. One eats, one spreads seeds, both benefit. And we benefit by reading their relationship and knowing when to harvest. This is ecology, not as a subject you study in school, but as a lived reality you participate in. The gatherer sees the world as a web of relationships, and she knows her place in that web. She's not an outside observer. She's a thread in the fabric. One of the adolescent girls asks a question. She's pointing at a tree with unusual bark, peeling in long strips. The gatherer approaches, examines it, and her expression changes. She becomes very still, very focused. She calls the group over. This tree, she explains, is dying, and not from natural causes. See these marks? Something has been stripping the bark, something big, and recently. She points to sap that's still sticky, still fresh. The group exchanges glances. Everyone understands what this means. A large animal, probably a bear, is active in this area. And while bears are not usually aggressive, they are unpredictable, especially if surprised or if they have cubs. The gatherer makes a decision. We'll take a different path back to camp, longer but safer. And she marks the location in her mind, adds it to the mental map she carries. This area, for now, belongs to the bear. We'll come back when the bear has moved on. This is risk assessment. This is what anthropologists call landscape literacy. She reads danger in tree bark the way you might read a warning sign, and she adjusts her behavior accordingly, without fear, without drama, just with the practical wisdom of someone who knows that the wilderness is not a park created for human recreation. It's a community of beings with their own needs and territories, and humans are just one species among many. As you walk the longer path, you notice how the group's energy has shifted. Everyone is more alert, eyes scanning, ears tuned to sounds. This is not paranoia. This is appropriate vigilance. In a world where predators are real and help is not a phone call away, awareness is survival. But here's what's remarkable. Despite the tension, despite the very real danger they've just avoided, no one seems anxious in the modern sense. No one is catastrophizing or imagining worst-case scenarios or lying awake at night replaying the moment they saw the damaged tree. They assessed the risk, adjusted their route, and moved on. This is the difference between fear and anxiety. Fear is a response to present danger. It's useful. It keeps you alive. Anxiety is fear about future hypotheticals, about things that might happen but probably won't. And anxiety, modern neuroscience is finally understanding, is largely a disease of civilization. When you live in immediate relationship with risk, when danger is concrete and present rather than abstract and distant, your nervous system stays calibrated. You respond to real threats and relax when they pass. But when you live in a world where the threats are invisible and constant, where the news feeds you catastrophe from around the globe, where your job and your health insurance and your retirement all hang by threads you can't see or control, your nervous system never gets to rest. It's always scanning for the bear that isn't there. The gatherer doesn't have anxiety. She has challenges, and there's a profound difference. The group reaches a stream, and everyone stops to drink. The water is cold, clear, straight from the earth. No filter, no treatment, just water as it's been for millions of years. And it tastes different from the water you know. Alive, mineral, real. As you drink, you watch the others, the way they cup their hands, the way they lean forward, careful not to disturb the silt, the way they look upstream and downstream, checking for signs of animals who might have used this water source recently. Everything is observation. Everything is data. The young man who joined the gathering party crouches by the stream and examines something. He calls the gatherer over. There, in the mud at the water's edge, is a print, large, clawed, recent enough that water is still seeping into the depression. The gatherer studies it. Her face is calm, but you can see the calculations happening behind her eyes. She looks at the sun, estimating time, looks upstream, reading the landscape, makes a decision. We'll fill our water bags here and move on. Whatever made this track is probably far away by now, but we won't linger. And that's exactly what they do. Efficient, calm, no wasted motion or energy. Within minutes, everyone has drunk their fill, refilled their leather water containers, and the group is moving again. This is what competence looks like. Not the absence of danger, but the ability to recognize it, assess it, and respond appropriately. The gatherer doesn't pretend the wilderness is safe, but she also doesn't treat it as an enemy. It's simply home, and she knows how to be at home here. By the time you return to camp, it's early afternoon. The sun is high and hot. People are resting in the shade. Children are playing a game with sticks and stones, something complex with rules you don't quite understand, but which seems to involve both skill and luck. The hunters who left at dawn haven't returned yet. They might not return for several days, but there's no anxiety about this. The gathered food will sustain everyone. And if the hunters come back with meat, wonderful. If not, life goes on. You help sort the harvest. The tubers are placed near the fire, ready to be roasted later. The greens are laid out to dry. The berries are eaten immediately because they won't keep. And as you work, you realize something. You've been walking for hours, digging for hours, carrying weight for hours, and you're tired, yes, but it's a good tired, a satisfied tired, the kind of tired that comes from using your body the way it was designed to be used, in the open air, for a purpose that matters. Not the exhausted, anxious, bone-deep fatigue of sitting at a desk for 8 hours under fluorescent lights, trying to care about emails and metrics and performance reviews. This is different. This is older. This is what tired is supposed to feel like. And tonight, you suspect you'll sleep like you haven't slept in years. Somewhere out there, beyond the hills, beyond the river, beyond the comfortable radius of camp, the hunters are running. They've been running since before dawn, and they'll keep running until the sun sets, or until the animal they're chasing can run no more. Let's join them. The hunting party consists of 5 people, 3 men, 2 women. All of them are between 20 and 40 years old, which is the peak physical window for this kind of work. They're lean, corded with muscle, their skin darkened by years of sun exposure. Each carries a small pack with water in a leather bladder, a few pieces of dried meat, and their weapons, lightweight spears tipped with stone points that took days to craft. They're tracking a small herd of pronghorn antelope. These animals are among the fastest on Earth, capable of sprinting at 60 miles per hour. They can outrun any predator alive today, except one. Humans don't run fast, but we run long, longer than almost anything else with a spine. And on a hot day, when the sun is high and the air is still, that endurance becomes a weapon. The hunt began hours ago when the trackers found fresh prints near a watering hole. Pronghorn, maybe 8 of them. The hunters read the prints like text. This one is heavier, probably a buck. This one drags slightly, maybe injured or old. That's the one they'll focus on, the weak link. Nature is not sentimental. They followed the tracks at a walk at first, conserving energy, reading the story the ground told them. Here the herd grazed. Here they rested. Here they caught the scent of something and bolted briefly before calming down. And then the hunters spotted them. A quarter mile away, the herd grazing peacefully in the tall grass. This is where the real chase begins. The hunters don't try to sneak up. That would be pointless. Instead, they simply start jogging toward the animals. Not fast, just a steady, ground-eating pace. And when the pronghorns see them and sprint away in that explosive burst of speed that no human could ever match, the hunters don't stop. They just keep jogging. And here's the key. Here's the secret that allowed humans to colonize every environment on Earth, from the Arctic to the desert. Humans sweat. It sounds trivial. It's not. Most mammals cool themselves by panting, which means they can't run and cool down at the same time. They overheat. They have to stop, rest, let their body temperature drop before they can run again. But humans can sweat while running. Our cooling system is always on. We can maintain a steady pace for hours without overheating. And on a day like today, when the sun is merciless and there's no shade on the open grassland, that difference is everything. The pronghorn sprint away and disappear over a rise. The hunters keep jogging. They crest the rise and scan the landscape. There, in the distance, the herd has stopped, already breathing hard, sides heaving. The hunters adjust their course and keep coming. The pronghorn bolt again. The hunters continue their relentless, patient pursuit. This continues for hours. The hunters are not trying to catch the pronghorn. They're trying to exhaust them. Every time the animals stop to rest, the humans appear again on the horizon, forcing them to run again before they've fully recovered. Over time, the intervals of rest get shorter. The animals' movements get sluggish. Their body temperature climbs. They begin to overheat. And the hunters, through all of this, maintain the same steady pace. Heart rates elevated but controlled. Breathing heavy but rhythmic. Sweat pouring off them. Yes, but their core temperature stable. One of the hunters, a woman in her late 20s, is the lead tracker. She reads the ground with a precision that seems almost supernatural. See that? The injured one is falling behind. Its gait is uneven. It's favoring its left front leg. We focus on that one now. Let the others go. The group adjusts. They're not chasing the herd anymore. They're chasing one animal, and that animal, stressed, overheated, exhausted, is making mistakes. It's zigzagging instead of running straight. It's wasting energy. After 6 hours of pursuit, the moment arrives. The pronghorn stops. It's standing in a shallow depression, sides heaving like bellows, tongue lolling out, eyes wide. It's reached the limit of its endurance. It can't run anymore. Its body has overheated to the point where running again might kill it faster than the hunters will. The hunters approach slowly now. No need to rush. The animal is done. One of the men raises his spear. It's a weapon that represents thousands of years of refinement. The shaft is perfectly straight, balanced. The stone point is symmetrical, sharp enough to shave with, attached to the wood with sinew and plant resin in a bond stronger than glue. He's practiced throwing this spear since he was a child. He could hit a target the size of a fist from 20 feet away. He throws. The spear flies true. It strikes the animal just behind the shoulder, penetrating deep into the chest cavity, piercing the heart or lungs. The pronghorn staggers, collapses, and within moments, it's still. There's no celebration, no whooping or chest beating. Instead, there's a quiet moment of something that looks like reverence. One of the hunters kneels beside the animal, places a hand on its flank, and speaks softly. We don't know the words, but we know the sentiment. Thank you. I'm sorry. Your death gives us life. This exchange was necessary, and we honor it. This is not sentimentality. This is the psychology of people who understand deeply that they are not separate from nature, but part of it. The boundary between hunter and hunted is thin. You kill to live. Someday, something will kill you. That's the circle. That's the deal. The work of butchering begins immediately. This must be done with care. Meat spoils quickly in heat. They open the body cavity, remove the organs. The heart, liver, kidneys are delicacies and will be eaten first. The stomach contents are examined. What was this animal eating? Where might we find more of that plant? Every part of the animal is a source of information. The hide will become clothing or shelter. The sinew will become thread. The bones will become tools or be cracked open for marrow. The hooves might be boiled down to make glue. Nothing is wasted. But there's too much here to carry back in one trip. So one hunter stays with the carcass to guard it from scavengers, while the others return to camp to bring back more people and more carrying capacity. This meat will feed the entire band for days. and everyone will share it, not just the hunters, because that's the rule. The person who makes the kill doesn't own the meat. The meat belongs to everyone. This rule exists for a reason. Hunting is unpredictable. Today you succeed. Tomorrow you fail. If successful hunters hoarded their kills, half the band would starve while the other half gorged. But with mandatory sharing, everyone eats. The risk is distributed. The reward is distributed. It's socialism written into biology. As the hunters begin the long walk back to camp, tired but satisfied, carrying choice cuts of meat, they're not thinking about economics or social theory. They're just doing what humans have always done, taking care of each other, making sure that when night falls, everyone sleeps with a full belly. Because out here, your survival depends on the group, and the group's survival depends on you. And that mutual dependence, that deep knowledge that you are responsible for others and they are responsible for you, creates a bond that goes beyond friendship, beyond family even. It creates a tribe, and for 2 million years that was enough. But let me tell you what happened during those 6 hours of running that the brief description doesn't capture. Let me tell you what it actually feels like to hunt this way, because it's unlike anything in your modern experience. The first hour is almost meditative. You're jogging at a pace you could maintain for days if you had to. Your breathing is steady. Your mind is clear. The landscape moves past you in a rhythm that becomes hypnotic. Step, breathe, step, breathe. The sun is warm on your skin. Your body is doing what it was designed to do, and it feels good, natural, right. This is the state that modern runners call flow, and they chase it desperately through expensive shoes and performance gear and carefully planned training regimens. But here, it's just Tuesday. This is what hunting is. This is how you eat. The second hour is when the heat starts to matter. The sun is higher now, bearing down without mercy. Your skin is slick with sweat. Salt crystals are forming at your hairline, but you're not overheating. Your cooling system is working perfectly, dumping heat through your skin while your core temperature stays stable. You're a machine designed for exactly this task. Ahead of you, you can see the pronghorn. They've slowed to a trot, then a walk. They're breathing hard. They stop, and you can see their sides heaving. They're already in distress, and you've barely begun. The third hour is when it becomes work. Your legs are starting to feel it now. Not pain exactly, but fatigue. The constant impact of foot on ground, thousands of steps, begins to add up. Your knees ache slightly. Your calves are tight, but you don't stop. You can't stop, because stopping means the animal recovers and you have to start over. The lead tracker, the woman, is reading the ground constantly. She's seeing things you can't see. A disturbed pebble, a bent blade of grass. Evidence so subtle it might as well be invisible. But to her, it's a map. She adjusts the course slightly, angling to cut off the pronghorn's escape route. The fourth hour is when the animal starts to make mistakes. It's overheating now, desperately so. Its tongue is lolling. Its gait is unsteady. Instead of running in a straight line, it's zigging and zagging, trying to shake you. But this only makes things worse. Every wasted step brings it closer to collapse. And you keep coming. Relentless, patient, inevitable. This is what made humans the apex predator of the Pleistocene. Not strength, not speed, not claws or fangs. Just this. This terrible, patient endurance. The ability to keep going when every other animal on Earth has given up. The fifth hour is when it becomes transcendent. You're not thinking anymore. Your conscious mind has stepped aside and something older has taken over. Your body knows what to do. It's done this 1,000 times across thousands of generations. You are not you anymore. You are every hunter who ever lived, and they are running through you. Your vision narrows. The world reduces to simple inputs. Animal ahead, ground beneath, sun above, breath in, breath out. There is no past, no future, only this eternal present moment of pursuit. Modern psychologists would call this an altered state of consciousness, a trance. But to you, it's just focus. It's the place where the thinking mind stops and the doing mind takes over. And then, finally, the moment arrives. The pronghorn stops. It can't run anymore. Its body has reached the absolute limit of what flesh and blood can endure. Another 100 yards and it would die from heat stroke even without your spear. As you approach, something unexpected happens. You feel something that might be sorrow, might be respect. This animal ran beautifully. It did everything right. It used every advantage nature gave it. And it still wasn't enough. Because you are human and humans are patient. And patience beats speed every single time. The spear flies, the animal falls. And in that moment, you understand something profound about the relationship between predator and prey. It's not hate. It's not even hunger, really. It's something stranger and more complicated. It's intimacy. You have spent 6 hours inside this animal's experience. You know how it thinks, how it moves, what it fears. You have matched your will against its will, your endurance against its speed. You have been joined in a dance as old as life itself. And now that dance is ending, and there is something sacred in that ending. The butchering that follows is not casual or careless. Every cut is made with intention. The hide is removed carefully so as not to damage it. The organs are extracted in a specific order, each one examined for signs of disease or parasites. The meat is sorted by quality and use. Nothing is wasted, yes, but more than that, nothing is disrespected. This animal died so you could live. That's not metaphor. That's literal truth. The calories in this meat will become the calories that keep your heart beating, your brain thinking, your body moving. You will become this animal in the most direct possible sense. Its flesh will become your flesh. And understanding that, feeling it in your bones, changes how you eat. In your modern life, meat comes wrapped in plastic, abstracted from its origins. You can eat it without ever thinking about the creature it came from. But here, that's impossible. You can't forget what you just saw, what you just did. Some modern people, Learning about this, imagine that ancient hunters must have been callous, must have had to harden themselves to the reality of killing. But the evidence suggests the opposite. They felt it more, not less. The difference is that they didn't have the luxury of looking away. Death was not hidden in distant slaughterhouses. It was here, in their hands, and they had to face it directly. And facing it, they developed rituals to cope with it, the quiet words spoken to the dead animal, the offering of a small portion back to the land, the stories told later, acknowledging the animal's spirit and thanking it for its sacrifice. These are not primitive superstitions. These are psychological technologies, ways of processing the complex emotions that come with being a creature that must kill to live. You modern humans have lost this. You eat meat and feel nothing, or you feel guilt and stop eating meat. But neither response engages with the fundamental reality. Life eats life. That's how this world works. Plants eat sunlight and soil. Herbivores eat plants. Carnivores eat herbivores. And humans, those strange omnivores, eat everything. The question is not whether to participate in this cycle. You're already in it. You can't escape it. The question is whether to do so consciously, with respect, with an understanding of what's being exchanged. And that's what the ritual provides. A way to kill and eat and still remain human. Still remain capable of empathy and connection. As the hunters begin the long walk back, carrying meat, they're quiet. Not sad, exactly, but thoughtful. The rush of the chase has faded, leaving behind a complex mix of satisfaction, exhaustion, and something like melancholy. They did what had to be done. They did it well, and life will go on because of it. But they're not celebrating. They're not high-fiving or trash-talking the animal they just killed. There's a gravity to it, a weight. They took a life. That matters. And the fact that it was necessary doesn't make it not matter. This is maturity. This is what it looks like to be an adult in a world where actions have consequences and choices have weight. You do what needs doing. You don't shy away from it, but you don't glory in it either. You simply carry it, this weight of being alive, and you keep walking. Late afternoon now. The hunters won't return until tomorrow, but there's no worry. The gathered food is plentiful. And besides, there's work to do. You're sitting in the shade of the rock shelter, and around you, people are engaged in the work of making. This is craft time, tool time, the hours when the heat of the day makes strenuous activity unpleasant. But fine motor work is perfect. A man in his 40s, someone we'll call the toolmaker, is seated on a flat stone, surrounded by flakes of flint. He's working on a blade, not a crude, chunky hand axe like you might picture, but something refined, delicate, a piece of technology as sophisticated in its way as anything in your pocket. He holds a large piece of flint in one hand and a hammer stone in the other. The flint is a core, a prepared nodule from which he'll strike off blade after blade, each one usable with minimal further work. This is called prismatic blade technology, and it's a hallmark of the Upper Paleolithic. He examines the core, turning it in the light, reading the internal structure of the stone through subtle variations in color and texture. Flint is frozen liquid. It fractures in predictable ways if you understand its grain. He's looking for the right angle, the right point of impact. He positions the core against his thigh, steadies it, and strikes. A sharp, precise blow. The sound is like a gunshot. Crack. A thin blade of stone detaches from the core and falls to the ground. It's roughly 6 inches long, slightly curved, with edges so sharp you could shave with it. And he's barely touched it. This is not luck. This is skill honed over decades. The toolmaker began learning this craft as a child, watching his father, practicing on scraps of lower quality stone, gradually building the muscle memory and spatial reasoning required to see the finished tool inside the raw material and then reveal it through controlled violence. He picks up the blade, examines it, nods. Good. He sets it aside and prepares to strike another. Over the course of an hour, he'll produce maybe 20 blades from this single core, each one sharp, each one useful. Some will become knives. Some will be hafted onto wooden shafts to become spears. Some will be set into bone handles to create scrapers for processing hides. The variety of tools you can produce from a single material is astonishing if you understand the material deeply enough. Nearby, a woman is working with leather, not the soft, supple leather you might buy in a modern store, but rawhide, stiff, and tough. She's transforming it through a process that requires both strength and chemical knowledge. She's laid the hide over a smooth log and is scraping it with a stone tool, removing every last bit of fat and tissue from the inner surface. This takes hours. The scraping must be thorough, because any fat left behind will rot, and the hide will stink and fall apart. Once the hide is clean, the real transformation begins. She has a wooden bowl filled with a paste made from the brain of the animal this hide came from. Every mammal, conveniently, has just enough brain matter to tan its own hide. She works this paste into the leather, kneading it, stretching it, letting the oils and enzymes break down the collagen structure. Over the next few days, she'll continue this process, soaking, stretching, smoking the hide over a fire to set the tan and make it waterproof. And when she's done, she'll have created something that can last for years, that can protect against cold and rain, that can be sewn into clothing or bags or shelters. She learned this from her mother. Her mother learned it from her grandmother. The knowledge goes back so far that no one remembers when it was discovered. It's simply known. It's simply what you do if you want to survive a winter. Across the way, 2 teenage boys are working together on something else. They've found a large bone, maybe from a mammoth or bison, and they're carving it. The work is painstaking. Using sharp flint blades, they're cutting a groove down the length of the bone, slowly hollowing it out. What they're making is a flute, music. In a world of survival, in a world where every calorie counts, where every hour of daylight must be used wisely, these boys are spending days creating an instrument that will produce nothing but sound. And no one stops them. No one tells them this is frivolous, because it's not. Music is as essential to human life as food. It binds groups together. It creates synchrony, that feeling of moving as one. It elevates ceremony from mere action to something transcendent. The oldest known flutes are 40,000 years old, carved from vulture wing bones with finger holes precisely spaced to create scales. Your ancestors were not grunting and banging rocks together. They were playing melodies. You watch all of this, and you begin to understand something. These people are not primitive. They're specialized. Every single person here has skills that would take you years to learn. The gatherer's encyclopedic knowledge of plants, the hunter's ability to read tracks and terrain, the toolmaker's understanding of stone fracture mechanics, the woman's mastery of biochemistry in the form of brain tanning. In your modern life, you might be an expert in one thing, maybe, and for everything else, you rely on specialists, on systems, on technology. But here, everyone is a polymath by necessity. You must know enough about everything to survive if you're alone. And you must know one or two things deeply enough to be valuable to the group. This is intelligence. Not the kind measured by tests or grades, but the kind measured by whether you can keep yourself and your people alive. As the afternoon wears on, an older woman approaches the toolmaker. She's carrying a piece of ivory mammoth tusk, polished smooth. She's carved something into it. A small figure, a woman's body, exaggerated hips and breasts, a tiny head, a Venus figurine. These objects have been found across Europe, from France to Siberia. They're among the earliest representational art, and no one knows exactly what they mean. Fertility symbols, religious icons, toys, portraits. What we do know is that making them required tremendous skill. Ivory is hard, unforgiving. Carving it with stone tools demands patience and precision. And yet, people made them. Not one or two, but hundreds, scattered across thousands of miles, carved by different hands in different times, but all sharing a common vision of what was worth representing. The female form, abundance, life. The older woman shows her figurine to the toolmaker, and he admires it. He says something, and she laughs. They're speaking a language lost to time, but the emotion is universal. Pride in work well done. The pleasure of creating something beautiful for its own sake. This is not survival. This is culture. And the fact that it exists here, 40,000 years ago, in a world without cities or agriculture or writing, tells you something fundamental about what human beings need. We need to make things. We need to leave a mark. We need to say, through object or image or sound, I was here. I mattered. I saw beauty, and I tried to capture it. That impulse has not changed. It's the same impulse that makes a child draw on walls, that makes a teenager write poetry, that makes an adult spend hours arranging a perfect photograph. We are makers. We've always been makers, and we always will be. As the sun begins its descent toward the horizon, the work gradually winds down. Tools are cleaned and put away. The ivory figurine is wrapped in soft hide and tucked into a leather bag. The boys continue working on their flute, but more slowly now, enjoying the last light. Someone starts a song, just humming at first. No words, just a melody. others join in. Voices layering, harmonizing, creating something complex and beautiful that exists for a few minutes and then disappears into the air like smoke. This is the sound of humanity. Not the words which we've lost, but the impulse, the need to fill the silence with something we created together. And as you listen, you feel something in your chest, a tightness, an ache, because you recognize this. You've been part of this. Maybe not here, not 40,000 years ago, but somewhere, singing around a campfire, humming along to music in a car full of friends, feeling that moment when voices align and you're not separate people anymore, but one thing, one sound, one heartbeat. You felt this before, and maybe, just maybe, that's because it's been inside you all along, waiting for the right moment to remember what it felt like when the world was smaller and the bonds were stronger and the silence was filled with the sound of people who knew your name and cared whether you made it through the night. As the last light fades, something else begins to happen. The children, who have been playing at the edges of camp all day, start to gather near the central fire. Not because anyone calls them, not because it's bedtime, but because this is when the stories start. And children know, without being told, that stories are important. A girl of maybe 7 approaches the elder. In her hands, she's carrying something. A small figure she's carved from a piece of soft wood. It's crude, but recognizable. A horse. She's been watching the toolmaker work all afternoon, and she's been trying to imitate what she saw. The elder takes the carving, examines it with the same seriousness he would give to an adult's work. He turns it in the firelight, running his thumb over the rough cuts. Then he looks at the girl and speaks. What he says is both critique and encouragement. The proportions are off, yes. The legs are too thick, the head too small. But the stance is right. She's captured something essential about the way a horse stands, and that, he tells her, is the hardest part. Anyone can carve shapes, but to carve life, to capture the spirit of a thing, that's art. He hands the carving back, and the girl beams. She's received what every child craves: recognition from someone who knows, validation that what she's doing matters. This is education without schools, learning without curriculum. The girl wanted to carve, so she watched someone who knew how, and then she tried it herself. And now she's received feedback that will help her improve. No grades, no tests, no anxiety about falling behind or measuring up. Just the natural human process of see, do, get feedback, improve, repeat. And here's what's remarkable about this process. It works. By the time this girl is 20, she'll be an accomplished carver. Not because she studied carving, but because she's been doing it irregularly but consistently for 13 years. She'll have made hundreds of figures, each one a little better than the last, and no one will have ever told her she wasn't good enough or that she should give up. In your modern world, education is compulsory and standardized. Everyone learns the same things at the same pace according to a plan someone else made. And the result is that many people never discover what they're actually good at, never find the thing that makes their hands itch to create. But here, children are free to apprentice themselves to whatever interests them. If you want to learn about plants, you follow the gatherer. If you want to learn about stone, you sit with the tool maker. If you want to learn about tracking, you go with the hunters. There's no wrong choice because the community needs people with all of these skills. Whatever you choose to pursue, you'll be valuable. As more children gather, the elder shifts into storytelling mode. His voice changes, becomes more rhythmic, more musical. He's not just talking anymore, he's performing. The story he tells tonight is one you've heard before, in a different form. It's about the stars, about how they came to be. In his telling, the stars were once people, heroes who did great deeds and were lifted into the sky as a reward. Each constellation is a story. That cluster there, those are the 3 hunters who track the great bear across the world. That bright star, that's the first woman who learned to make fire. Are these stories true? In a literal sense, no. But in another sense, they're profoundly true. Because embedded in these stories is information that matters. The 3 hunters constellation only appears in the sky at certain times of year, times that correlate with animal migrations. The first fire star rises just before dawn during the dry season, when fire making is most important. The stories are mnemonic devices, ways of encoding essential information in a format that's memorable and transmissible. As long as people tell these stories, the knowledge survives. And there's something else happening here too, something deeper. By telling stories about the stars, the elder is teaching the children that the universe is not random or meaningless, that there's an order to things, a history, that the world makes sense if you know how to read it. This is cosmology, it's religion, it's science, all mixed together in a way that modern thinking has tried to separate, but which, at this level of human development, are still one unified system of meaning-making. As the story unfolds, you notice the children's faces in the firelight. They're utterly absorbed, not fidgeting or checking phones or wondering when it will be over. Just listening with the total attention that children give to things that matter to them. And you realize these children are not being entertained, they're being educated. But because the education comes in story form, wrapped in emotion and drama and wonder, they don't experience it as work, they experience it as joy. How different from the way you were educated, sitting in rows, memorizing facts you'd forget as soon as the test was over. Learning things because the curriculum said you had to, not because you wanted to or could see any use for them. Counting down the minutes until recess, until lunch, until the final bell. What was lost in that system? How much curiosity was crushed under the weight of standardized testing? How many children learned to hate learning because it was made into a chore instead of an adventure? Here, there is no separation between education and life. Everything the children do teaches them something. Playing teaches them about physics and social dynamics. Working alongside adults teaches them about craft and responsibility. Listening to stories teaches them about history and values and how to be human. And because it's all integrated, because it all matters, they learn eagerly. Not because they're forced to, but because knowledge here is obviously directly useful. You learn about plants because knowing plants is what keeps you from starving or getting poisoned. You learn about animals because understanding animals is what makes you an effective hunter. You learn about stars because stars are how you navigate and mark the seasons. Everything connects, everything matters, and that makes learning not a chore, but a necessity and a pleasure. The elder finishes his story, and there's a moment of satisfied silence. The children are still for a moment, letting the story settle into their minds, becoming part of the vast internal library they're building. Then, one of the boys asks a question. Why did the 3 hunters chase the bear? What did the bear do? And the elder smiles, because this is exactly the right question. This is evidence that the boy is thinking, engaging, trying to understand the logic of the story. And so, the elder tells the next part. The bear stole fire from the people. The hunters had to get it back. And the chase lasted so long that by the time they caught the bear, they had run all the way up into the sky. The boy nods, satisfied. And you see it happen. The story has just become part of his understanding of the world. He'll remember this, and someday, when he has children, he'll tell them the same story. And the chain will continue, unbroken, carrying knowledge across the generations, like a relay race where the baton is made of words and memory and firelight. This is culture. This is how a people persist, not through institutions or bureaucracies, but through this, the simple act of telling children stories that matter. Night has fallen. The transition from day to darkness happens quickly here, without the long twilight of higher latitudes. One moment the sun is setting, painting the hills gold and orange and purple, and the next moment the stars are out in force. More stars than you've ever seen. So many they don't look real. The central fire has been built up. Not a bonfire, we don't have wood to waste, but a substantial fire, the kind that produces both light and heat in a careful balance. People are gathering around it. This is the social hour, the time when the band becomes truly cohesive, when the work of the day gives way to the work of being human together. You find a spot and sit. The ground is still warm from the day's sun, but the air is cooling rapidly. Someone passes you a piece of meat, roasted over the coals. It's the pronghorn from yesterday's hunt, finally brought back to camp, butchered and distributed. The meat is tough, gamey, nothing like the corn-fed beef you might buy in your time, but it's rich and satisfying, in a way that goes beyond flavor. This is fuel. This is life. As people eat, the conversations begin. At first, it's practical talk, tomorrow's plans. Should we move camp soon? The water source is getting low. Someone needs to check the fish traps, the usual maintenance of life. But as the night deepens and the fire burns down to a steady glow, the talk changes. The elder, the same man who spoke to you at dawn, clears his throat. It's not a loud sound, but everyone notices. Conversations taper off. Attention shifts to him. This is how leadership works here. Not through force or title, but through earned respect. When the elder speaks, people listen, because he's proven over decades that his words carry weight. He tells a story. It's about his grandfather, a man who died before most of these people were born. The grandfather was a great hunter, yes, but more importantly, he was generous. One winter, the story goes, the band was starving. Game was scarce. The gathered foods had run out. People were weak, desperate. And the grandfather, even though he had a family to feed, even though his own children were hungry, shared his last stores of dried meat with a family who had nothing. He gave away food his own children needed. And for a while, everyone thought he was a fool, that he'd condemned his own family to death out of misplaced nobility. But then, the weather turned. The snow melted early. Game returned. And because the grandfather had shared, because he'd kept that other family alive when hunting resumed, they shared their kills with him. His children survived. Everyone survived. The moral is obvious. Generosity is survival. Hoarding is death. But the way the elder tells it, with pauses, with changes in tone, with gestures that paint pictures in the air, transforms a simple lesson into something mythic. You can see the grandfather in your mind. You can feel the cold of that winter. You can understand the impossible choice he faced. This is oral tradition at its finest. This is how values are transmitted in a society without books. Make the lesson memorable. Make it emotional. Make it stick. When he finishes, there's a long silence. The fire pops. Somewhere in the darkness, an owl calls. Then someone else speaks. A younger woman, someone who was on the gathering expedition earlier. She tells a funny story about one of the children who tried to help with digging tubers and ended up covered in mud, more dirt than child. Everyone laughs. The child in question, now clean and half asleep against her mother, grins sheepishly. Laughter is important here. Joy is important. Yes, life is hard. Yes, death is always close. But that's exactly why moments of lightness matter. They're not escapism. They're the point. Another person speaks. This one's story is darker. It's about a man from a neighboring band, a man who refused to share, who hid food, who lied about what he'd found, and how, eventually, when he was injured and needed help, no one came. How he died alone, because he'd broken the fundamental compact of human society. This is gossip serving its function, social control through reputation. There's no jail here, no police, just the knowledge that if you violate the rules, the group will remember. And out here, being outcast is a death sentence. But it's not all stories. Sometimes there are questions. A teenage boy asks the toolmaker about flint. Where does it come from? Why is it better than other stones? The toolmaker doesn't know the geology, doesn't know about silica or sedimentary layers, but he knows which hillsides have good flint and which don't. He knows that flint from certain areas is glassy and sharp, while flint from other areas is grainy and weak. He shares this knowledge freely. The boy listens, absorbs, files it away for the day when he'll need to find his own stone. A young mother asks the older women about a rash her baby has. They lean in, examine the child in the firelight, confer quietly. One of them goes to her sleeping area and returns with a pouch. Inside is a powdered bark. Mix this with fat, she says. Rub it on the rash. It will fade. This is medicine. Empirical, tested through generations. Does it work? Sometimes. Sometimes not. But it's the best they have, and often it's enough. As the night deepens further, the conversation shifts again. This time to the spiritual. Someone asks about dreams. There's a belief here that dreams are not random firings of a sleeping brain, but messages from ancestors, from the spirits of animals, from the land itself. People share their dreams and others interpret them. A hunter dreamed of a white deer. What does it mean? The consensus is that it's a good omen. Deer are generous animals. They give their lives to feed people. A white deer is especially sacred. The hunt will go well. A woman dreamed of falling. She was in a cave and the ground gave way and she fell into darkness. The interpretation is more cautious. Be careful. Watch your footing. Darkness can mean the unknown. Maybe something unexpected is coming. Are these interpretations accurate? Does dream symbolism work this way? It doesn't matter. What matters is that these conversations bind people together. They create a shared language of meaning. They turn individual experience into collective wisdom. The fire is burning low now. People are starting to drift away, heading to their sleeping areas, bundling up in furs. But a few remain, the ones who don't sleep easily, the ones who have more to say. And you stay too. One of the older women, someone we haven't met before, speaks quietly. Her voice is soft, almost a whisper, but in the silence, it carries. She talks about the stars. She says the stars are the eyes of ancestors, watching over the living. Each star is someone who died, and they look down, and they remember. And when you die, you become a star too. You join them. You watch over those you loved. Is this true? Is there any cosmological accuracy here? No. But that's not the point. The point is comfort. The point is continuity. The point is the knowledge that death is not obliteration, but transformation. That the people you love are not gone, but changed. That you are part of something larger than yourself. A chain that stretches back to the first humans and forward to the last. And sitting there, under a sky so thick with stars, it looks like snow, you feel it. The presence of the past. The weight of all the people who sat around fires like this, who looked at these same stars, who felt the same awe and fear and wonder. You are not alone. You have never been alone. 40,000 years of ancestors stand behind you, and 40,000 years of descendants, if we're lucky, stretch ahead. You are a link, and tonight that feels like enough. But the night is not over. As some people drift towards sleep, others remain awake. There's a different quality to the conversations now. Quieter, more intimate. This is when people talk about the things that matter most. A couple sits together at the edge of the firelight, speaking in low voices. They're making plans, deciding whether to stay with this band or split off and join another group. She has family in a band 2 valleys over. He's worried about the water source here drying up. These are the kinds of decisions that shape lives, and they're made together through conversation, through negotiation, through the slow work of building consensus. In your modern world, we have therapists and counselors and relationship experts who teach people how to communicate. But here, communication is just what you do, constantly, because there's no privacy, no opportunity to avoid difficult conversations. If you have a conflict with someone, you have to work it out. You can't just ghost them or block them or move to a different city. You're stuck with each other. And that forces a level of emotional maturity that modern life often doesn't require. The couple reaches a decision. They'll stay for now through the next full moon. Then they'll see. And you can hear in their voices that this is acceptable to both of them. No one is being coerced. No one is giving up more than they're willing to. It's compromise in the truest sense. Nearby, two older women are engaged in a different kind of conversation. One of them is pregnant, and she's worried. She's had difficult births before, lost children. The fear in her voice is real and raw. The other woman listens, doesn't try to fix it or minimize it, just listens. And then, when the pregnant woman has said everything she needs to say, the older woman speaks. She tells a story about her own pregnancy, the terror she felt, the pain, and how she survived it. And then she says something remarkable. I will be with you. When your time comes, I will be there. You will not go through this alone. This is what community means. It's not an abstract concept. It's this. It's the promise that when you're most vulnerable, when you're most afraid, someone will be there. Not because they have to be, not because they're paid to be, but because they choose to be, because you matter to them, because your life is intertwined with theirs. In your modern world, birth has been medicalized. It happens in hospitals with strangers in scrubs following protocols. And that's probably saved countless lives, yes. But something has been lost too. The experience of being surrounded by people who know you, who love you, who have their own scars from the same battle, and can hold your hand and say, I understand, I'm here. The pregnant woman is crying now, but it's not the crying of despair. It's release, relief. She's been carrying this fear alone, and now it's shared. And sharing it has made it smaller, more manageable. The two women sit in silence for a while, shoulder to shoulder, watching the fire. And you understand that this silence is not empty. It's full of presence and connection, and the wordless knowledge that they are not alone. Across the fire, a teenage boy is sitting by himself, and he looks troubled. One of the men, someone we might call the storyteller, notices. He approaches slowly, carefully, sits down next to the boy but doesn't speak, doesn't ask what's wrong, just sits. After a long moment, the boy speaks. He's worried he's not brave enough. The other boys his age are already going on hunts, and he's still afraid. What if he fails? What if he can't do it? The storyteller listens, and then he laughs. Not mockingly, but warmly, kindly. He tells the boy a secret. Everyone is afraid. Fear is not weakness. Fear is wisdom. It's your body telling you to be careful, to pay attention, to respect the danger. The brave person is not someone who feels no fear. The brave person is someone who feels fear and does what needs doing anyway. And then he tells the boy about his own first hunt. How his hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold his spear. How he missed his first 3 throws. How the older hunters teased him about it for years. The boy is listening intently now. This is not the polished, heroic story the storyteller tells around the communal fire. This is something else. This is truth. This is the admission that even experts were once beginners. Even the storyteller was once a terrified boy. You will fail, the storyteller says. Everyone fails. What matters is that you try. And when you fail, you learn. And you try again. And eventually, you succeed. That's how every person here learned everything they know, through failure and trying again. The boy nods. The worry hasn't completely left his face, but it's lighter now. He's been given permission to be imperfect, to be human. And that's a gift beyond measure. This is what mentorship looks like in a culture without formal hierarchies. No one has the title of teacher or counselor or therapist, but everyone, to some degree, plays these roles for each other. The web of care and support is woven through every relationship. And because the group is small enough that everyone knows everyone, nothing falls through the cracks. No one suffers alone. No one's pain goes unnoticed. In a community of 25 people, every person matters. Every person is seen. Compare this to your modern life. How many people live in your city? Hundreds of thousands. Millions. How many of them do you know by name? How many of them would notice if you disappeared tomorrow? The anonymity of modern life is both liberation and curse. You're free to be whoever you want, yes. Free to reinvent yourself. Free to leave behind the people who knew you as a child and build a new identity somewhere else. But you're also free to be lonely. Free to suffer in silence. Free to feel like you don't matter to anyone. Because in a city of millions, you really might not. You might be just another face in the crowd, another person whose absence would barely register. Here, that's impossible. Your presence is felt. Your absence would be felt. You are woven into the fabric of the group so tightly that pulling you out would leave a hole. And that creates a kind of security that no amount of money or success in your modern life can provide. You are known here. You are needed here. You belong here. And that belonging is not something you have to earn or prove. It's not something that can be taken away. It's simply what you are. A member of the group. A person among people. The night deepens. The fire burns lower. People drift toward sleep in ones and twos. But the sense of connection remains. Even in sleep, you're not alone. You're surrounded by your people, protected by their presence, held in the web of relationship that makes human life possible. And as you finally let yourself relax towards sleep, you carry with you the conversations you overheard, the couple making plans, the women sharing fears, the boy receiving wisdom. All of it is part of the invisible structure that holds this community together. The constant work of being human with other humans. In your modern world, you have social media, thousands of friends, constant connection to the entire world through screens. But how much of that connection is real? How much of it would survive if the power went out? How many of those thousands of people would sit with you in the dark and listen to your fears? Here, you have 25 people, but those 25 people are real. Their presence is physical. Their care is tangible. And when the fire goes out, they don't disappear. They're still here, still real, still present. And maybe that's enough. Maybe it's more than enough. Maybe it's everything. The fire has burned down to coals. Most people are asleep now, curled under hides in clusters of 2 or 3, their breathing slow and deep. The night is quiet, except for the small sounds of the wilderness, wind in the grass, the distant call of a night bird, the crack of cooling stone in the rock shelter. You lie down in your sleeping area. The ground beneath you is not soft, but you've padded it with dried grass and animal skins, and it's more comfortable than you'd expect. The furs you pull over yourself are heavy, warm, and they smell like smoke and animal and earth. You lie on your back, looking up. The rock ceiling above you is close enough to touch, but the opening of the shelter frames the night sky. And that sky is alive with light. The Milky Way, that great river of stars, arcs overhead. You can see its structure, its depth, the way some stars seem closer and others impossibly far. There's no moon tonight, just stars. And as you watch, you see movement. A meteor streaks across the sky, bright and brief. Then another. A meteor shower, something that happens when Earth passes through the debris trail of a comet, though you don't know that. You just know that the sky is falling, beautifully, harmlessly, and it feels like a gift. You think about the day you just lived. You woke without alarm. You ate when hungry. You walked for miles, gathering food from a landscape you could read like a book. You watched people create tools and art with their hands. You listened to stories around a fire. You felt the weight of community, the knowledge that you are held by something larger than yourself. And now you're going to sleep under the stars, in the open air with the sounds of nature as your lullaby. When was the last time you did any of this in your modern life? When was the last time you woke up naturally? When was the last time you spent a full day outside, using your body, creating something with your hands? When was the last time you sat around a fire and talked, really talked, without the distraction of screens or the pressure of time? If you're honest, you probably can't remember, and maybe that's why you feel the way you do in your modern life. Anxious, disconnected, tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. Because you're living in a world your body doesn't recognize. A world of artificial light and processed food, and constant stimulation and isolation disguised as connection. Your body, the same body that's lying here under the stars right now, was designed for this. For movement and sunlight and community and rest that follows exertion. For days that have rhythm and nights that have silence. But you've traded that for something else. For comfort, yes. For safety, mostly. For the miraculous technology that lets you read these words, that keeps you warm in winter and cool in summer, that delivers food to your door and information to your pocket. And that trade has been worth it in many ways. Life expectancy is longer. Infant mortality is lower. Pain can be managed. Disease can be cured. But something has been lost too. You've lost the deep knowledge of the land. You couldn't name 50 plants if your life depended on it, let alone 300. You've lost the constant presence of community. You might go days without a meaningful face-to-face conversation. You've lost the rhythm of work and rest tied to the sun. You work when your boss says, sleep when the clock allows. You've gained the world, and you've lost the garden. But maybe, just maybe, you don't have to lose it completely. Maybe you can take pieces of this old world and weave them into your new one. Maybe you can wake up a little earlier and watch the sunrise instead of scrolling through news. Maybe you can turn off the screens an hour before bed and sit in dim light, letting your mind wind down naturally. Maybe you can cook a meal from scratch, using your hands, feeling the texture of ingredients, smelling the transformation that heat brings. Maybe you can gather with people you care about, not for a purpose, but just to be together, to talk, to laugh, to share stories that won't be recorded or posted, but will live only in memory. Maybe you can find a patch of wilderness, even a small one, and walk through it slowly, observing, learning the names of things, remembering that you are an animal too, that you belong to this earth and it belongs to you. Maybe you can reclaim some of what was lost, not all of it. You can't go back. Time only moves one direction, but you can carry forward the wisdom, the understanding that human beings have needs that go deeper than shelter and calories, that we need connection and beauty and rhythm and rest, that we need to feel useful, needed, part of something larger than ourselves. These needs don't disappear just because we live in cities instead of caves. They just go underground. They become the anxiety you can't name, the restlessness you can't shake, the feeling that despite all your achievements, something essential is missing. What's missing is this sky, this silence, this sense of being held by the earth instead of separated from it. And you can find it again, not perfectly, not completely, but enough to remember who you are. Your breathing is slowing now. Your body temperature is dropping as the night deepens, and that drop triggers the release of melatonin, the hormone of sleep. Your ancestors didn't know about hormones or circadian rhythms, but they lived in perfect alignment with them anyway. They slept when it was time to sleep. They woke when it was time to wake. And you, lying here under the stars, are doing the same. Around you, the band sleeps. The children curled against their mothers. The hunters recovering from their exertions. The elders resting lightly, ready to wake if the fire needs tending or danger approaches. You are safe. You are warm. You are fed. You are part of a group that knows your name and would fight to keep you alive. In your modern life, you have locks on your doors and alarms on your windows because you don't trust the world outside. But here, you sleep in the open, protected only by the awareness of your companions and the knowledge that everyone is watching out for everyone else. Which is safer? Your eyelids are heavy now. The stars are blurring. The last thoughts drift through your mind like leaves on a stream. You think about the gatherer, her hands dark with soil, her mind full of the names of plants. You think about the toolmaker, shaping stone into edge and purpose. You think about the elder, his voice carrying stories across the generations. You think about the children, learning by watching, becoming what they see. You think about the pronghorn, running across the grassland until it couldn't run anymore, giving its life so others could live. You think about the fire, that ancient technology, that transformation of wood into light and heat, that center of human society for 1,000,000 years. And you think about yourself, here, now, lying under the same stars your ancestors saw, breathing the same air, feeling the same pull of sleep. You are them. They are you. 40,000 years is nothing. A blink. The brain in your skull is the same brain. The heart in your chest is the same heart. The needs, the fears, the hopes, all the same. And maybe that's the real lesson of this journey. That you don't need to go back in time to find what you're looking for. You just need to look inward, to listen to the voice that's been whispering all along, the one drowned out by traffic and notifications and the endless demand to be more, do more, have more. That voice says, slow down. That voice says, you have enough. That voice says, you are enough. And tonight, under these stars, with the fire warm and the people close, and the darkness soft instead of frightening, you believe it. You close your eyes, and you sleep. But before we leave this world behind, before we return to the present, there's one more thing I want you to understand. Something about the morning that's coming, about the cycle that will begin again. When you wake tomorrow in this ancient world, the first thing you'll feel is cold. The fire will have burned down. The air will have that crystalline quality that comes just before dawn. And for a moment, just a moment, you'll feel vulnerable, small, alone in a vast and indifferent universe. But then you'll hear it, the breathing of the others, the subtle sounds of 24 other human beings sleeping close enough that you can hear their life continuing, even in darkness. And that vulnerability will transform into something else, something warm and solid and unshakable. You are not alone. You have never been alone, and you will never be alone as long as this group exists. This is the primal comfort. This is what your nervous system was calibrated for across millions of years of evolution. Not isolation and independence, not privacy and self-reliance, but this, the knowledge that you are part of a group that will catch you if you fall, feed you if you hunger, protect you if you're threatened. In your modern world, we've traded this for something else. We've gained autonomy and privacy and the ability to live however we want without the constant scrutiny and judgment of a small group. And that trade has value, real value. But we've also lost the deep, bone-level security that comes from being truly, intimately known. From having people who remember you as a child and will remember you as you age, who know your quirks and your fears and your dreams and accept you anyway, who are stuck with you and you with them for better or worse, because leaving is not an option. The group you're sleeping with right now has conflicts, disagreements, people who annoy each other, people who have history, old wounds, unresolved tensions. It's not perfect. It's not a utopia. It's human, messy and complicated and sometimes frustrating, but it's also home. And home is not the place where everything is perfect. Home is the place where you're allowed to be imperfect and still belong. As you drift deeper into sleep, your brain is doing something remarkable. It's processing the day you just lived, consolidating memories, strengthening neural pathways, filing away everything you learned about plants and tracking and tool-making and social dynamics. And in doing this work, your brain is connecting you to every human who ever lived. Because this is what human brains do. We learn, we remember, we pass on what we've learned to the next generation. And in this way, knowledge accumulates across time, building and building until a species that started with nothing but stone tools and fire ends up walking on the moon. You are part of that chain. You always have been. Even in your modern life, with all its technology and complexity, you are doing exactly what your ancestors did. Learning, creating, passing on knowledge, trying to make sense of a confusing world, trying to build a good life for yourself and the people you care about. The details have changed. The tools are different. The challenges are different. But the fundamental shape of a human life remains the same. You wake, you work, you connect with others, you rest, you sleep, you dream. And in your dreams, sometimes you remember. You remember what it was like before cities, before agriculture, before everything got so complicated. You remember what it felt like to live in rhythm with the sun and the seasons, to know your world so intimately that you could survive in it with nothing but your wits and your hands, to be part of a community so tight that your survival and theirs were the same thing. And when you wake in your modern world, sometimes you carry a whisper of that memory with you, a sense that something is missing, that you're living in a way that doesn't quite fit, that your body and mind are oriented toward a world that no longer exists. This is not weakness. This is not maladjustment. This is your biology remembering. This is 40,000 years of evolution whispering. This is not what you were made for. And maybe, just maybe, listening to that whisper is the first step toward building a life that works better, a life that honors both who we were and who we're trying to become, a life that finds balance between ancient needs and modern realities. The night is deep now. The stars are wheeling overhead in their eternal patterns. The earth is turning, carrying you through darkness toward another dawn. And all around you, your people sleep, breathing, dreaming, alive. This moment has happened billions of times across human history. People sleeping under stars, protected by fire and community, trusting the night to pass and the sun to return. It's one of the most universal human experiences. one of the few things that connects you directly to every person who ever lived. And as you sink into that sleep, into that ancient and universal rhythm, you're not just resting. You're participating in something vast and timeless. You're becoming part of the great chain of human existence. You're remembering what you've always known, but sometimes forget. You are human. You are animal. You are made of star stuff and clay. You are fragile and resilient. You are alone and connected. You are temporary and eternal. You are enough. You are enough. You are enough. Sleep now. The ancestors are watching. The fire is warm. The people are near. And in the morning, the world will still be here, waiting for you to wake up and live in it one more day. One more beautiful, complicated, painful, joyous day. Sleep now. We'll be here when you wake. Good morning or good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are. If you're still with me, if you've made this journey all the way through, I want to say thank you. Not just for listening, but for caring, for being willing to step outside your time and imagine what it was like to be human in a different way. We've spent a day and a night 40,000 years in the past. We woke without alarm, gathered food from the wild, watched hunters chase prey across open grassland, sat around fires listening to stories, and slept under stars so bright they seemed close enough to touch. And through it all, I hope you felt something. Recognition, maybe. A sense that these people, for all the distance between us, were not strangers. They were us, just wearing different skins, speaking different languages, but underneath the same need for connection, the same desire to create, the same fear of death and hope for meaning, the same love of beauty and hunger for understanding. 40,000 years have passed. We've built civilizations and torn them down. We've created art and literature and music and mathematics. We've split the atom and walked on the moon. We've cured diseases and extended lifespans and connected the entire world through invisible networks of information. And yet, the fundamental shape of a good human life hasn't changed much at all. We still need to wake gently. We still need to move our bodies. We still need to feel useful. We still need to be part of a community that knows our name. We still need to create, to make something with our hands that didn't exist before. We still need stories. We still need beauty. We still need to rest under the stars and remember that we're small and the universe is vast. And somehow, impossibly, we're here to witness it. These needs don't disappear because we have smartphones and central heating. They just go unmet. And we suffer for it in ways we don't always understand. So maybe the lesson here isn't that we should go back. We can't. And honestly, we probably wouldn't want to. Modern life, for all its problems, has given us wonders. Medicine that saves lives. Technology that connects us. Knowledge that empowers us. But maybe we can bring forward the wisdom. Maybe we can ask ourselves, what did they have that we've lost? And can we reclaim any of it? Can we spend more time outside? Can we learn the names of the plants in our neighborhoods? Can we turn off the screens and sit in firelight or candlelight and just talk? Can we use our hands to build or cook or create, instead of just to scroll? Can we remember that we are animals, biological creatures with biological needs, and that no amount of technology will change the fact that our bodies and minds still crave the things they've always craved? I think we can. I think we must. Because the alternative is to continue sleepwalking through lives that feel empty despite being full, that feel lonely despite being connected, that feel meaningless despite being productive. And life is too short for that, even modern life with all its extra years. So here's what I'd like to invite you to do. When you wake up tomorrow, try to wake up slowly. Give yourself 10 minutes before you reach for your phone. Just lie there. Feel the temperature of the air. Listen to the sounds. Let your mind wander. Remember what it felt like to wake up 40,000 years ago, when the only thing demanding your attention was the light of the sun. At some point during the day, go outside, even if it's just for 10 minutes, even if it's just to stand in your backyard or walk around the block. Feel the ground under your feet. Notice the sky. Look for something alive, a bird or an insect or a tree, and really see it. Not as background, but as another creature sharing this planet with you. And tonight, before you sleep, turn off the screens, dim the lights, sit in near darkness, and if you can, if the weather allows, step outside and look at the stars. You won't see as many as our ancestors did. Light pollution has stolen that from most of us. But you'll see some, and those few stars are the same ones they saw, connected across 40,000 years by light that left its source before humans even existed and is only now reaching your eyes. That's the thread. That's the connection. You are part of something so much bigger than your daily worries. You're part of a story that goes back millions of years and, if we're wise, will continue for millions more. And tonight, you got to remember that. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for imagining. Thank you for being willing to consider that maybe, just maybe, the path forward requires looking back. I'd love to know where you are in the world as you listen to this. Are you in Tokyo as dawn breaks? In London in the middle of the afternoon? In New York as you prepare for sleep? Drop a comment and let me know. I love seeing how far these stories travel, how many different lives they touch. And if this resonated with you, if you found something valuable here, consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who's feeling disconnected or overwhelmed. Someone who's forgotten that they're more than their job title or their to-do list. Share the story of our ancestors. Remind them and yourself that we come from people who survived ice ages and droughts and predators and disasters. That we carry their strength in our bones. That we are, all of us, the descendants of survivors. And if you want to support this work, if you want to help me create more of these journeys through history, consider joining as a member. Your support makes this possible. It lets me spend the time researching, writing, recording. It lets me keep doing what I love, which is finding these forgotten stories and bringing them back to life. But whether you join or not, whether you comment or not, I'm grateful you were here. Now it's late or early. Time is strange in this space we've created together. But wherever you are, whatever time it is, I hope you sleep well tonight. I hope you dream of grasslands and stars. I hope you wake up tomorrow with a little more awareness of the miracle of being alive, here, now, in this moment that will never come again. Close your eyes. Let your breathing slow. Feel the weight of your body against the surface beneath you. You are safe. You are here. You are enough. And somewhere in the deep past, around a fire that burned 40,000 years ago, your ancestors are telling stories, and one of those stories, impossibly, is about you. About the future they couldn't imagine, but somehow helped create. They're proud of you. Sleep well, my friend, until next time.